drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's not.
It's heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and a very warm welcome on what has been a very, very cold week where we've lost much racing, but we're here to cheer you up with the weekly fare of the Sunday Sermon, brought to you by Cook on Sunday, our cooking show, which is tremendous, by the way, and we released another episode this morning, and it's our best one yet, and you must give it a listen. That's on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Joining me, as always, to chew the fat on this show. Tired of introducing them now. It's the same names.
We're tired of doing this. Can you not tell? Well, our listenership can. The one person that listens can say we're fatigued with it all.
As long as he's out there, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, and as long as he's not died in the armchair watching fucking Countdown or something, we'll be there for him. Yeah.
Welcome to my two partners in crime, which is Mr. Jonas Lang of Middlesbrough fame and the Essex boy, Chris.
Yeah.
Good evening, chaps. Cold week this week. There's not really a lot to talk about on the racing review front. John, have you anything to add? I mean, obviously, we're going to come to some unfortunate events at Kempton yesterday, as we've had questions on it. But in terms of the action, there wasn't really a lot to get the juices flowing, was there?
It was nice to see Iberico Lord win because it got the conversation going about our scoop last week, and you could just taste the resentment amongst the press pack, couldn't you? Which is a beautiful thing to say.
God, it don't matter, does it?
It matters to them. They don't like it up them. They like the fuzzy wuzzy.
No.
Why? I don't get it. It don't matter, does it? Who breaks it?
No.
Nick Luck sometimes breaks it. A racing post sometimes, rarely break it. But
it tends to be who that breaks it, though, doesn't it?
But we had some gems in past, and like I said on last week's show regarding to Harry Cobden taking the JP job.
It's up to him, isn't it?
It'll be up to Harry. I'm assured off the right people that the job's is if he wants it, but
He's just got to get a handbrake from Halfords, isn't he, to put in his kit bag, and then he's away to go.
he's going to need his Mr. Handbrake.
Yeah, a good one.
Yeah, a real good one.
Yeah, it could last a million times use before it disintegrates. Yeah, needs that.
Yeah,
well, he went on a 4 seasons boating holiday, didn't he? And he nicked the anchor, so he'll be all right.
A whole season's boating brochure. Do you remember the advert?
Oh, wonderful.
Yes,
yeah, now is the time to drop us a line.
That's it.
Yeah.
Your whole season's boating brochure.
Now is the time to drop us a line. That sounds like a New Year's Eve Bob Ogden party, John.
Yeah, drop several lines.
First serious subject. John makes a point with his question thread regarding this. He said in his question thread today about optics. Optics will get someone killed soon, but they all love welfare. Now, sadly, we did see 3 horses that are no longer with us after racing at Kempton yesterday. 3 fatalities. I did know that the chase course rode fairly quick. Did that have a bearing? I don't know. All I know is it happens. But John, let's touch on your optics thing, because I think you've got an opinion on this.
I certainly have. And it's not actually to do with horses getting injured jumping fences or anything like that. What it is, it's around horses misbehaving and how things have changed, where the people handling the horses are now really having to do everything with one hand tied behind their backs because of optics and how they'll be viewed if they do what's necessary. Example, the amateur race at Newcastle yesterday. Now, the lad gets up on the horse, and the horse basically is behaving like a leery bastard.
Yep.
It's plunging, prancing about. The kid can't really do anything with it, you know. It's ridiculous, for want of a better word. This kid's ended up, it's plunged forward and he's gone over its head in the paddock on the concrete.
Yeah.
Now, he's lucky he's got up from that. But rather than doing what's necessary, which is give it a bloody good swipe across the chops,
Yep.
he's got up, he's gone to the start risking life and limb without his feet in the irons. that in itself, on a horse that's behaving like a leery bastard, you're losing 40 or 50% of your control there. That's asking for an accident. It was Quintus Arias, by the way.
Yeah, we're at risk here of upsetting a few people. I get why. Look, God, no one wants to see horse fatalities or injuries.
Without that necessary slap round the chops, that horse was more likely to hurt himself.
Getting onto that about slapping them around the chops, I'm afraid, I know horses are treated like royalty. They are. They get the best care and attention of many a groom, stable hand, trainers, assistant trainers. But let's be fair here, right? And we all know this goes off and has gone off. When you get a Larry thoroughbred, in terms of it's ready to take you out when you're cleaning the shit up in the box, giving it new bedding, and it's cornered you and it's ready to. I'm afraid they do need a right hand.
I mean, let's be fair. We're talking about a 6-year-old gelding here with a mouth like a metal worker's vase.
Yeah.
We're not talking a 2-year-old first time out or something like that.
Is there not an argument then in those circumstances, if a horse unships a jockey in those circumstances, to have it withdrawn? That's it.
Well, if that's
The stewards maybe say that. I don't know.
if that's your position you take on optics, yes, by all means, withdraw.
Yeah.
Because to me, that incident needs addressing at that time. There's no time to ring Monty Roberts and give it 5 sessions, is there?
No, or Yarmy to come down there and
No,
sort
exactly.
him out. That's it.
No,
So
if
is
you
that not the
can't
answer?
take the necessary action to calm that horse and give it a crack, well, he's out.
Right, the thoroughbred, and this is what it kind of pisses me off with animal rights protesters and things like that, because people do find it uncomfortable. Of course, your horse dies on the screen.
It's horrible. Fucking vile.
It's not nice to see at all. It really isn't.
No.
But let's be right here. The thoroughbred is a very complex animal. It's not like these animal rights people think you could just let them loose in a field. Some horses are sweet-natured, easy to do. You'll always see trainers like praise a horse when it's got a great mind, not a bad bone in its body. But there are some that are virtually impossible to deal with by an inexperienced stable hand. And when I mentioned this, I owned one called Palindrome that won for me when it was trained by Tommy Fife and Amy Fife. Now, we were at Windsor and the horse before the race getting saddled up, and he was trying to take lumps out of both Tom and Amy, putting a saddle on. He was a nasty bastard. And I'm sorry, but there's certain horses that you do have to show authority to, because you can't talk to it. You have to show authority to get the horse to cooperate. So, as I said, that's something that these animal rights people, and I'm not going to say work lovies, because no one likes to see a horse, like I keep repeating that, but injured. The point is, in a way, they're like children that can't speak, because there's nothing you can do. If they're out of control, the only thing you can do is give them some stern, as John says. And that's gone off in yards for years, and I don't care what anyone says. Oh, that's not true. It is true. A form of control. And like you say, if that lad had done that on TV, as in that Newcastle amateur race, what would have been the optics? Everybody would have got onto Twitter, would have gone berserk, said, oh, that lad needs.
If there was a rule in racing brought in tomorrow, that said, from now on, there's absolute zero tolerance of any physical coercion whatsoever, you'd lose half the horse population in a calendar year.
Well, we said it with a persuader, the Procush. We have to change the words as we go along. And we said that once they brought the amount of strikes in, it'd be forever decreasing circles. Again, it's like the optics. Oh, he's a butcher. He whipped it twice more than he was supposed to. And again, that's where we've led the sport, really.
Once more, it's all about the optics rather than common sense, because we're actually limiting the number of strikes with an implement that our people say doesn't even hurt.
Do you remember the old BHA chair, Nick Russ, when he went to York? He were at York Racecourse, and he went on TV, and he's like giving his arm a good old bash with it, probably getting off on it. But
given the gross profits deal that he came up with, he should have had it focused across the cock, shouldn't he?
I can only think that what a half a ton horse feels off a Procush these days, it's like an instruction.
Again, we're talking about half a ton of horse that can feel when a fly lands on its ass.
Yeah.
So where are we coming from with this? Are we saying he can't feel the pro cush? Of course he can, must do. He has to.
Yeah.
So are we dealing in levels of pain? What? I mean, it's all flowery nonsense that they come up with.
I will give the BHA credit for the whip alterations because, as John knows from back in the 70s and 80s, I've even been racing and seen a horse bleeding on its hindquarters. We've gone from absolute, very, very harsh kind of things to use on an animal to just encouragement. That's all it is. That's how I see it. But the mistake they made was them putting a number on it rather than common sense. Everyone can see when a ride's excessive. Anyone with a brain can look at a ride and go, do you know what? That were unpleasant to the eye. We're going to have the jockey in for that. You don't need to put a number on it. If an horse is responding fine.
Basically, they're micromanaging their own stewards out.
Pretty much, this is the problem. They obviously don't seem to trust the stewards at the racetrack, so they're having to put a number on to basically say, right, well, that's too many strikes. But John, it's a great point, optics. This little section will upset some people because I get, animal welfare.
Well, by all means, get upset. Tell us your point of view.
Well, yeah, of course we love welfare. They're beautiful creatures. But again, if the optics are bad, in your opinion, then we've got to ban jumps racing because, as we know, that's the most dangerous form of the sport of kings. I ain't got the stats on it, but that will take the most life.
Well, if you said it gave a shit, there'd never be summer jumping, would there?
No, absolutely not. John's right. The optics have made it difficult for racing because...
And they're trying to make it a selling point as well. That Lord Allen, his number one priority is stated his welfare. I mean, where the fucking hell are these people getting off? They're just looking to hamstring the entire sport.
Yeah, I agree. Our thoughts on Grand National and everything else.
It's going to get somebody killed.
Yeah. What is the riders or the stable groom? There'll be stable grooms listening to this that will have been cornered in boxers shitting themselves.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's terrifying.
And it is terrifying. Former trainer of mine, Brian Ellison, he told me a story about one on Gallops once that it was that difficult that it chucked the rider off and it stood on him and stamping on him. And that's what I'm saying. They're complex animals. They're not like horses that you just give a sugar lump to in a field. If you ever see a 2-year-old broken in, that is enlightening to watch because they are the lunatics, a lot of them. Breaking them in means, obviously, you take them round a ring. You're showing them, I've got to say, who's boss.
Yeah. And look at the way they geld horses as well. You've got talented 3-year-olds, etc., with, great pedigrees, and they take a view and say, well, this has got a lot of innate ability, but it's largely unmanageable, not putting their best foot forward on the track, so we'll have their conkers off and see if that calms them down. So that's another form of human intervention into the thoroughbred.
Well, humans do that with dogs, with pet dogs.
Of course they do.
It's because if you didn't have a dog that would probably try and shag anything.
And it's a form of it's a form of it's an acceptable form of coercion.
I'd say Ray never missed a chance to show something that's relating to horse welfare. We brought this in. We go to Liverpool and say, look at these giant fans we've got to cool them off and all the rest of it. Well, that's fucking perfectly entitled because we're making them run in warm weather, 4 miles and a bit, and jump in 30 fences. There should be big fans there to cool them down.
Yes, absolutely.
And as well, if we are talking about welfare, and I have made this point many a time, it should be compulsory that there's an outrider at each meeting because stop delays of a race taking place because a horse gets loose, to save the horse that could potentially injure itself fatally from running around loose, to save people, and it has happened where horses have broke into crowds and mowed down people, to save that. And there's lots of things that an outrider brings. It calms horses down. Like John says, the one at Newcastle that's been unruly, if the outrider then goes up to it with the other horse, sometimes horses can calm down for another horse, sort of like comfort blanket sort of thing. I am fully aware on welfare. It's just that I know for a fact our words will upset some people, so I'm getting it in. I'm in agreement with you.
None of us on here are against animal welfare and looking after the horses.
No.
What we're against is this ridiculous promotion an optic that simply doesn't exist in the real world. If television cameras aren't there, it's a different ballgame entirely. It shouldn't be the case. We should be dealing right across the board with the same consistent approach to these animals.
Yeah.
I
Agree
think
with
you've nailed it, John, with that sort of subject topic, because it'll get people talking. People will have different views, and that's totally fine to totally disagree with our views. But as I said, to us, it's just common sense. But you might not find it common sense. You might find it abhorrent that we hold these sort of views, that it's acceptable to hit a horse round the chops. But I'm afraid that I've seen it with my own eyes. And
I think Jamie Russell got done for it, didn't he?
He certainly did, yeah.
yeah, Mark Rimmel, was it Mark Rimmel that got done for
The
it?
show jumper as well. He got the
Todd.
yeah,
Todd.
Sir Mark Todd,
Mark.
yeah.
He
Mark
won
Todd.
with the fucking
Yeah, yeah,
brownstone, didn't he?
yeah.
That's like no, innit? It's
But,
Yeah.
but it is. But you're right. But because show jumping and other equestrian sports are subject to the same media scrutiny, I dare say that they are as bad, if not worse, than horse racing.
Well, I'm
You
sure they
know,
will
because
be.
you don't get that on the TV as often as horse racing.
No.
to some racing thoughts and questions from you guys, and we appreciate them. At this time of year, it's quite quiet with the abandonments and things to talk about, but we do appreciate you getting back on Twitter to John's questions. Bufflar has been on. Bufflar,
I
I
know,
don't
I'm sure it
know.
means something rude, but
Unless producers like spelling it.
Wasn't he in Gavin and Stacey?
I think probably.
Bufflar.
Bit of that.
Calwell Potter, his and Mason's best, so Fergie's best horse, and big by major injury, out for the season. Calif, promising horse, Grade 1 winner, tragic. Has Sir Alex lost his status as luckiest bastard in the game to Harry now, John?
Only for the time being, I think.
Okay. Shunter says, do you think more national hunt horses are dying on the racecourse nowadays than, for example, the 70s or 80s? And if so, why? I haven't the data, so if I say something, it could be a load of rubbish.
I'm pretty certain stats are pointing downwards, actually.
Yeah.
I don't actually have the stats to hand, but I'm pretty certain less are getting killed.
Me and John are pretty certain that sneakily tracks are probably putting less birch in the fences.
Yes.
To make them obviously easier. We've noticed certain tracks. Cheltenham used to be one of the stiffest tests in the game. Remember that second last, John? It was absolutely brutal, wasn't it? On one at tracks. I can't remember if it's old or new course. I can't remember. But it's that one where you're running at it downhill.
If you flick till the top, that was good night Vienna, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. That's when race was quickening up as well. And it seems now, though, I've noticed a few horses at the Fez absolutely blitz through fences.
It, can't you?
They're not going down anymore. Is that a positive? Probably. Animal welfare, if we talk on the same subject. Gary Cheesefinger, another good name. Second only to Steve Mustard on Twitter. Has there been two poorer weekends of racing than we have just witnessed? Clearly the abandonments haven't helped, and neither did the scenes at Kempton yesterday. But how can we promote the sport to new blood when this is the drivel being served up? I get it in a way, because I couldn't get excited for Kempton card at all. I used to like a Lanzarote card. I did used to get excited for a Lanzarote meeting, but not like I used to. I don't know if that's a sign of time of racing and everything else. I've got to admit, that's how I've felt a couple of Saturdays. John?
The only thing that usually excited me about Lanzarote is that we're halfway through January. I'd struggle to find 2 weeks that have been less inspiring than the last 2 weekends in all fairness.
I was a bit worried about this week's show because I thought it's going to be quite difficult to fill airtime with gas bags, so I think we'll get through it just fine. It could do with just weather staying okay for a bit, and we can have some proper sport for a bit. The Dublin Racing Festival coming up on I think it's the 1st of Feb, is it? The end of Jan, 1st of Feb, something like that. Plenty to look forward to there, especially for you Irish supporters. Tom Livermore's been on. Tom, good supporter of Patreon. We appreciate that you do support us. I quite enjoy just one meeting on a Saturday. There's less to look at and can watch the football too. A few years back, I'd be devastated if a meeting was called off, especially on a
Saturday. Yeah, he's got blown idle, hasn't he?
On a Saturday. That's why racing is dying.
Tom just wants to sit there tossing it off now.
And he's pudding.
You know, he's lost his work
He
ethic.
has.
Tom sat there to carry on and tossing off to Barbara Windsor and on a Saturday. He's got ITV4 and hasn't he, on him Windsor.
Yeah. He's not fucking daft.
Yeah. There you go. Jay Ross bet's been on. He goes, "Are you going to talk about the ITV racing from Kempton? Alice Spunkless."
Oh,
My
dear.
God,
Poor Alice.
Really, mate?
living next door to her. Right? Come on, switch on. There was a joke there. You've missed that, haven't you?
Has that sailed over me? What was it?
Living next door to Alice, the song.
It's over.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Smoky.
Key.
Sorry, I'm terrible at it. That's part of the show now. Everyone loves it when I don't get jokes and shit like that.
Yes.
Anyway, his spunklet was cackling like an old witch at her selection finishing fourth, while completely ignoring the fact that Wurtpol has just
Yes.
broken its neck. Revolting, callous behaviour from Alice.
Christ, she might not have known.
Yeah, she probably didn't know. Bit fucking hard, isn't it? Bit
Bloody
hard.
hell. Talk about drag him out and shoot him.
It wasn't like dancing over its corpse, was she? I mean, she probably didn't know.
To be honest, I do sympathise with presenters when...
Yeah, she is. She's in the worst bloody spot for anything. She does the paddock and the walk back in. I mean, she'll be the last to know anything. Because nuclear strike, she'll have been dead 4 days before anybody told her.
Yeah, before anyone fucking told her. Wrap it up. Yes, we're all dead.
That's sort of mainly your racing question. There is one more racing question, but generally that's looking at the weekend's action. And thank you very much for getting in touch. Generation Z, John.
They're a horrible lot, aren't they?
A lot of talk about Gen Z and attending what was to be Friday Night Live at Wolverhampton.
I thought Chris made some excellent points on Twitter yesterday about this. I hope he'd revisit some of those because his section of the Ollie Bell approach.
See, the problem we've got. I mean, we've had the Holy Trinity so far this year, haven't we? We obviously racing is sort of now been gripped by the desire to, and it must be a 3-line whip from somewhere, to try and get more young people involved in the sport. Now, as regular listeners will know, we're not opposed to that, but we're opposed to the notion that that's the only way to get more people interested in racing. We've kind of hammered away about the grey pound, and we're not saying that nothing should be done to attract young people, but it seems to be that young people are regarded as the only route by which racing can be saved. And so, a couple of weeks ago we had blogger, didn't we? He was interviewed, I think it was it Rishi and Nick Luck? Do you remember that? It was on a podcast. I don't know whether it's just me, but blogger's physiognomy gets weirder every time I see him. He's got this huge inverted diamond for a torso, like a gorilla, that's sort of supported by these two kind of stumpy little legs. And it's quite peculiar. Yeah, totally.
Johnny
Or
Bravo.
Larry Lobster from SpongeBob. It's sort of Larry Lobster. He missed leg day, virtually every week. And he came up with some reasonable points, but fundamentally it's a vehicle for his own self-promotion. We've no criticism of that. He's got to earn a living. But it's the way in which Rishi and Nick Luck kind of leant forward and almost like they were at the Oracle at Delphi, having great dollops of wisdom. And frankly, the points he was making were kind of facile and simple that anybody could come up with. And yet, these people are kind of lionized as sort of able to provide a solution. And it's kind of like policy by PowerPoint, isn't it? A list of like 10 things, but there's never any detail behind any of these initiatives. So that was the first one. Then we had, what's his name, the chap that does Invaders, that's what it's called, that sort of initiative for students. Invades, that's it. And you've got Dom. He reminds me of the sort of bloke that if you go on a Club 18 to 30 holiday, he'd be the bloke hiring out the pedalos, wouldn't he? Cheesecloth shirt, button down to the waist, shark's tooth necklace, friendship bands, etc. And he'd sort of boast about how he can get some really good shit from a dude in the old town. He's totally chill. That kind of sort of slightly disreputable, slightly seedy character went on holiday as a gap year and absolutely totally loved the vibe, so just decided to stay, yeah. But again, and that's fine, he's got a living to make, but these people are kind of, they've got a solution that no one else has thought of, whereas in fact the points they're making are just bear no relation to the real world. But then to top it off, we had the young lady that was the Times journalist that appeared, I think, on ITV Racing yesterday. I only saw the edited highlights, but I don't know about you, but I've never heard of her prior to Saturday. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has, and she might have a huge following.
Once, I think.
Right, some miracle, despite having no profile in the sport, she's landed a gig on national television. and they're kind of lapping it up. And the problem is, the thing, with the exception, I guess, of Stephen Power, all these people are conspicuously upper middle class. They are not ordinary people. And the reason that is that the media, the racing media, and in particular terrestrial media, I guess, they don't like working class people because they're frightened of them. And you look at the way in which ITV covers the sport throughout the summer. Now, look at it. The crowd are always figures of fun. So you got that old boy sitting in the deck chair, remember him, that said he was having a shit day. And they wander out and have a quick talk to some of the, sort of gaggle of pissed up a hen party. Oh, would you fancy it?
He reminded me of John, by
Yeah, well, totally. But they are how people, middle class, used to go to lunatic asylums on a Sunday to look at the loonies and then come home again as a bit of sport. The rank and file punters that support the sport, they're kind of, almost the media look at them under sort of a piece of glass. They're kind of a weird, strange kind of creature that no one really understands and no one feels comfortable talking to. So that's why inevitably, upper middle class people like Ollie Bell, like Nick Luck, like Rishi, all those kind of people, maybe less so Rishi, they just don't want to talk to ordinary people because they don't have the skills or the emotional intelligence or the words to use to connect with ordinary people. So what you get then is a perpetual loop of these sort of posh, well-educated people that are brought in and are there to tell us what the answer to racing's problems is. Whereas the reality is that if you should actually connect with real punters, the sort of people that knock their bollocks out day in, day out, they're the ones that you should be polling for answers as to how to save the sport. But no one wants to talk to them because they're smelly and poor. All right, and that's it. But the reality is, whilst we've got a gross profits tax funding model, the punters who do their bollocks week in, way out, they're the ones you need to be talking to. And it just depresses the shit out of me that we have this sort of constant stream of Oxford-educated people brought into the media, and they're asked as if somehow they've got a kind of a moral or an intellectual superiority, whereas in reality is they know nothing of how the sport functions, because anyone who knew how the sport functions would realise that no amount of people through the door or ice creams or glasses of white wine sold is going to save racing, particularly when you can't get a bet on. And it just really frustrates the hell out of me that they just won't engage with their core supporters.
Well, that's it.
Yep.
While the current funding model is in place, is it really worthwhile looking at ways
No,
to sell racing?
exactly,
Because,
John.
I mean,
That's it.
you sell this, come racing, try racing, have a bet. Oh, by the way, if you're any good at having a bet, you won't be
Oh,
able
right.
to
Then I
have a
won't
bet.
bother anymore. And Andrew Woodward made a good point, sort of following up. He said it's financial lunacy because, as we've said time and time again, yes, these people may have gone racing at Cheltenham and had a fantastic day, and well done them, and maybe won a few quid. But the rest of the week, they're going to go back to university. They're going to go you're going to have family commitments coming up. They're going to get married. They're going to have other calls on their money. And the low-hanging fruit is people that have done all that in life, are retired or semi-retired. Go around National Trust properties, market to fucking garden centres, the sort of people that are there midweek. They're the people that have got disposable income and time on their hands. But for whatever reason, that's just not a sexy demographic, is it? Because it's sort of old people.
It's not interesting enough for ITV to send somebody
No,
into the crowd when 60% of them have brought their own
correct.
fucking
You got
sandwiches.
it.
2 points I'd just make on the subject. One of them is a counter to both of you.
Fuck him. Yeah, we're not listening. La, 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 la. We've got our fingers in our ears.
No, absolutely not. I genuinely agree with you in principle. I'm just giving a counter in a second. But first of all, the National Trust mailing list must be a priority for the PH. Somebody get hold of that and market to them lot. And all of a sudden, you're going to get a lot more owners into the sport. These are people that have nothing to do. They live in retirement. They'll have 3 holidays a year. Sometimes I think, oh, that sounds a good idea. And I've never thought of that. Like, let's own a racehorse.
Look at the photographs, Lee, of when a syndicate has a winner over the sticks. Or what do you see?
Yep.
You tell me what the makeup is. It
Yep.
people from BAME backgrounds, or is it sort of white, middle-aged, older people and their partners that form the background of the picture? And 99% of those pictures, it's the demographic we're talking about: people with a few quid or people who've retired with a few quid.
Exactly that. That's the first point, which obviously I've always sided with you on the grey pound, Chris. Just to counter just the sort of invades argument with an anecdotal evidence would be our very own Finn Nicol, who He's a subscriber to us, and it's a fantastic story. This, if you haven't heard it before, for those that have, you can just fast forward. But this is a young lad that was going on his first day at the races. He had no interest in horse racing whatsoever.
Like us, really.
Yeah, he managed somehow, I don't know how, but he managed to find our podcast, what we used to do, the Sipping Show. And he found it that hilarious that he was hooked. I think we must have given him a few winners. Now he works for Dragon Bet. And he loves the sport.
Yeah, but right, to counter your counter,
Queen to Q7 or whatever, yeah.
the BHA would never ever advocate anyone coming into this sport via our podcast.
No, that would be awful, wouldn't it?
No. It would.
By all means, get a job with Dragon Bet, but you've got to have been so invades.
And Oxbridge.
That do that horrible podcast.
Again, I could imagine some stories of people that do come through invades that actually do fall in.
They will. Totally, they will.
We're generalising when we say if you get 6,000 teenagers, early 20s.
We can only generalise, though, Lee, because like every other initiative that's brought in, they always make it absolutely unquantifiable.
You can't record it. And the point is, we're not saying that initiatives to attract the next generation of racegoers is a bad idea. It's a sensible idea, and it's a strategy that must be employed. But it's not the only strategy, and it's a very slow-burning strategy, isn't it? Because these people won't be in a position to be regular, full-time supporters of the sport for years, decades even.
But, like, if you're going to have, say, an invades day, I don't know, King George Day at Kempton. I know you probably wouldn't. I was going to say
like ours in the state,
for argument's sake. And then everybody that's on an invades day out gets a voucher for the Rosebery meeting at Easter. You know, and then at least you've got an idea of how many people are prepared to return at a heavily discounted rate the next time.
Brilliant.
That is
that's good.
If you're listening, invades, and everyone else, that's
measure
what you do.
Your effectiveness. Now, you can turn back and say, haha, boss, you dickheads, you're wrong as usual. We had a 95% take up of of tickets that were given at Cheltenham or Kempton or whatever, and 95% of those tickets were taken up at Rosebery, up your arse. And we'd say, fine, absolutely, we're wrong. But that's, until you have that kind of metric in place, you've no idea.
Yeah, data.
Yeah, measure it.
Data.
Measure it.
Data is valuable. We work off data. When you bet, you work off data. It's vital for everyone. If everyone's getting behind lots of initiatives, encourage data to see that, like you say, that they are repeat visitors.
So, and they won't have the resources to do it. But to use a terrible example, the Bernard Madoff Ponzi scheme, right? Now, Bernard Madoff had a network of money finders to hook up, to try and find millionaires and high net worth individuals to put money into his feeder fund. There would be an argument to have kind of a business development team or one or two people wandering around day in, day out to garden centres, National Trust properties, fucking Viking cruises, anywhere that retired people hang out and spend their leisure pound is right picking for people to be introduced to syndicate ownership, to racehorse ownership, to going racing, etc., etc. And I think that's a massively unexploited demographic. I think that's where your money is. That's where you're going to get an immediate bang for your buck. With the young people, you're not going to see any return on that for years, I'd say, if at all.
Some very thought-provoking opinion. So what's your view, listeners, on that? We'd like to hear from you. Comment on YouTube, you often do, and comment on Twitter, and let us know what you actually think to the Invades initiative, the sort of neglect of the grey pound, if you like, for now. We're not really encouraging the people with actual money. Don't forget that a lot of these Invades lot will live at home with parents, will be scared.
Time as well as money. It's that you're not having to go to a 9-to-5 job. You're not having to pick the kids up from school, so you can't go to a night meeting. People with money, yes, absolutely, but also time. Because, not everyone's going to have the financial wherewithal to buy a share in a horse or to take that next step. But it's time, and that's what you want. Time to go racing, time to have a bet, time to just immerse yourself in the sport. And when you're working, you just don't have that time.
Yeah, time definitely buys, money buys time. in essence.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's the thing. Next question is on data. Touched on data, and it's from Owen Haley. Thanks for the question. What are your thoughts on stride data? This is for me and John. Is it a metric you would pay attention to? I will answer last, John, so I'll give you, if you actually look at it at all, or if you're more old school than I am.
I feel as though I can usually tell if one's a long stride or a choppy action, and I think unless there was one where I had particular stamina doubts relating to pedigree or something, I'd maybe check with yourself,
Yeah.
as a backup. But I'd like to think that overall, I'd tend to know based on pedigree, running style, race rating.
Yeah. For me, it's not crucial. It's very informative in terms of the general rule of thumb. If anyone's sort of a novice at this, would be, and this doesn't necessarily work all the time, is that the higher the stride frequency, in other words, they do a lot of strides per minute, they tend to be faster sprinters, and the ones that don't have that quick stride pattern tend to be more stayers, is the rule of thumb. When you get something special though, and it can sometimes unearth something special, and I'll tell you what I use it to try and find something special, is when you've got a large striding horse, in other words, with a huge stride, the frequency is quicker than it should be, because that means it has to be a good horse. Think about it. It's covering more ground per stride and it's able to do it faster, which means if it shows that at any point in a contest, then that has to be a very good horse. That's a good metric. When Frankel came, we didn't have that metric data. We didn't have that available to the public. If we had, I'm certain what we'd have seen with Frankel would have been a big stride, and we'd have seen a rapid stride frequency. He can gallop for longer and faster, which makes him a good horse. It's something to look at, Owen. Get it to me first. I'll tell you more if you want to know more. That's not a problem. It is something to look at and consider. It's one of the variables of many variables in the selection process of forming bets. So yeah, for me, it's quite good. Next, John's question. John says, how do you fill in the time when racing is off? Me, I play a lot of chess. Is that acceptable?
I think it is, yeah.
I like the Russians. I like to play the Russians online.
Good.
Yeah, we drink vodka.
Speaking of which, does anybody remember Gary Kasparov?
Yeah, God almighty, not this fucking joke again. Trying to shoehorn that in.
I've seen him up for that.
Fucking hell.
Chris, can you tell your Russian story?
Of course I go. Many years ago in a form of my life, I went to Dubai with a guy who was a banking lawyer. And we went to see a Russian wannabe client who was one of was allegedly Putin's man in the Middle East, and his name was, I think it was like Alibet, and they called him Big Fish because it sounded like halibut, which was a bit flaky, and he was a sort of bit
flaky. It is actually a flaky
fish. Yeah. Two gags for the price of one there. And he was this sort of bullet-riddled Chechen warlord, etc. So he went to see this man in his apartment, and he had a sort of the top floor of a hotel. It wasn't the Burj, but it was a very, very good hotel. We went up to see this guy, and it was literally like something out of you'd imagine out of a modern sort of James Bond film. You know, it was sort of black marble floors, everything was white. It looked like a show apartment, this huge space, very minimalist, magnificent, clearly a man with a great deal of money. And he had a staff there of bodyguards, but the bodyguards were all sort of 6-foot catwalk models, all gorgeous, all mini skirts, all like fucking 8-inch stiletto heels, you know. I mean, it was just really weird. And they all looked exactly the same. If you can imagine the women that were playing, you know, in that Robert, I think it was what's his name? Yeah, Addicted to Love. Do you remember that record?
Yeah, Robert Palmer.
So you can imagine it's the sort of same hair and makeup. Yeah. They all look the same, all look gorgeous. Anyway, we went to see this guy, and he was explaining how Putin's operation worked, which I won't share, but it was basically he's got a man in every corner of the globe managing his sort of affairs, and this chap had responsibility for the Middle East, and he would say blah blah blah, and then he said, of course, he said it is great custom. You must drink vodka with us. So he pulled out this bottle, and then this bottle of vodka, this huge, fat, and obviously very dead scorpion in the bottle. I thought, fucking, I'm not eating this. So he said, you drink. I said, I'm not really a drinker. You drink. It is very disrespectful. You drink. So I thought, I can't drink this shit. So I already spotted a plant pot next to me. I thought, I'm going to dump this drink. I thought, no way I'm drinking that. And this banker was saying, oh, well, we've got to drink it. I said, I'm not fucking drinking that shit. So he pours him a slug of it. And the guy, he said, no, drink. So this guy, I'm waiting for this kid next to me to drink it. And of course, this kid necks it and sort of coughs, splutters. And whilst this guy's looking at him, I managed to dump the drink as well. And the kid immediately starts coughing and spews up all over his shirt. I mean, literally throws up. And this guy dissolves into gales of laughter. And he said, look at you stupid Western. Who drink vodka with fucking scorpion in? You fucking idiots. You fucking morons. I won't drink this shit. It's fucking poison. And this kid's going, and I'm going, oh my fucking God. He said, you're not stupid. You're not drinking. I said, no, I dumped it in the plant pot. And he looked at me and said, you did what? I said, I dumped it in the plant pot. He said, and he sort of muttered, so I thought, I'm in trouble here. But no, he said, you're fucking stupid. You believe anything we say. Trouble with vest. Don't think for self. And that was it. I always remember that. And mercifully, owing to sort of quite severe money laundering issues, that we were unable to help this man set up this bank because of the provenance of his funds were unclear, shall we say. So we made our excuses and left and fucking hightailed it out of that. But I'll tell you another quick Dubai story.
Yeah.
I went to Dubai there, and
Go on.
and there's a place there called Fibber McGee's, right? I don't know if it's still there. It's a sort of an expat, and it was just at the time was full of gangsters, all London gangsters, criminals from all around the world just seemed to go to this places. And there was a chap there from a group of people from a very prominent crime family, London crime family, not top tier, but they were top tier in the 1970s. Were quite famous for sort of armed robberies, etc. But at the time I went to see them, they were kind of on the down escalator. But you wouldn't want them after you, so quite heavy. And one of the cousins of this mob had an absolutely gorgeous American girlfriend. I mean, she was like a catwalk model. I thought, well, obviously got to keep looking at your shoes because you don't want to be seen to be grafting, in front of this person because you're going to get your throat cut. So anyway, to talk to her, she said, I'm writing a screenplay. So I thought, okay, and what are you writing? She said, I'm writing about crime. I said, okay, yeah, fine, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm struggling for inspiration. I felt like saying, well, fucking look around you, love. There's more criminals here than you're ever going to see. So got chatting to her. She's a nice woman. So she's chatting away. And I thought, I'll just talk to her nicely. Then anyway, so my pal comes over. He says, got a bit of a problem. So I said, what problem? He says, so I look over in the corner of my eye, and there's this guy, this cousin, who's fucking like pacing up and down at the corner of the bar, fucking raging like a caged animal. And people are trying to calm him down. I said, what's the problem with him? He says, well, he thinks you're hitting on his bird. But I'm not. I'm literally not doing that. He says, well, I know that. You know that. But he doesn't know that. And he says he wants to torture you. I said, well, fucking say some. I said, well, I'll go over there and tell him. He said, oh, no, it's the worst thing you can do. He said, he said, he's fucking raging. He's absolutely raging. So I look out the corner of my eye, and this guy's pacing up and down. Oh, my God. And he's furious. He's jaw strutting out. His arms are waving. I thought, oh, someone's trying to hold him back. I thought, oh, my fuck, I'm dead. I said, but I haven't done anything. He said, no, it's fine. We'll sort it out. So this guy goes in the back of the bar, my friend, and he said, right, okay, no problem. He said, you can go out through the kitchens. And he said, we've ordered you a cab. He said, we've spoken to the driver at the cab office. They'll take you back to the hotel. He said, just make your excuses and leave. So, fuck me, so I'm absolutely shitting it now, absolutely terrified. So I said to this woman, I've got to go. I'm feeling unwell. Oh, no, stay. No, you're okay. I said, love, thanks very much. Love to have met you. So I'm walking through this kitchen, like, the scene in the reverse of Goodfellas. Yeah, where all that, there are people like that. But I'm not the gangster. I'm like the idiot. They're looking, who's this idiot? So anyway, so I got to the back of this thing and I got into the taxi and they said, right, the pay the driver, and she said, driver knows where he's taking you. He said, just chill, right? I thought, so I'm sitting in the back of the cab. Oh, thank fuck for this. So when the cab pulls up, the fucking driver, instead of turning right, goes left, and he drives round to the front of the building and stops. I'm saying to the guy who can't speak a word of English, I said, no, you're going the wrong way. I said, my hotel's this way, this way, this way. And the bloke just doesn't know what's going on. Anyway, out the front of this building come all this whole gang of fucking blaggers and contract killers and God knows. I thought, that's it, I'm dead. So I didn't lock the door. So he's opened the door and the fella's leaned in. He's put his finger in. He's sort of grabbed hold of my lapel. He says, you coming back in? I want a fucking word with you. And I've sort of blurted out something like, it's a terrible misunderstanding. And he took me, marched me into place. And then there was a terrible silence. It was like the Joe Pesci scene, where he says, like, I'm funny how. And then they all burst out laughing. I said, yeah, do you like the joke? You were shitting it there, weren't you? You were shitting it. I thought, fuck me, I nearly passed out. He said, yeah, I had you there, though. I had you there, didn't I? You thought I was going to stab you, didn't I? I said, well, yes, that was a very real possibility. Here, have a fucking drink. So I had one drink and then left of my own steam. I've never in my life been so frightened as that. I thought, I'm dead. They're going to do me. But yeah, you go. So that was not much fun and games in Dubai. That was the last time I ever went.
Dubai Tales
Awful.
from Chris. Love it on a cold, quiet week. Yeah. The Scorpion one's just fantastic. Right, next question from Councillor Woodman. Who was the best racing scribe in the past in the racing purse sporting life, and how do the current mob compare?
You're the guy for that, John. You remember the sporting life well. You're the guy.
You're head man for this.
Well, it's probably a little bit biased with him being such a good friend, but I'd rather say Paul Haig.
Proper journalist.
Oh, yeah, Paul Haig. Paul Haig was excellent. And I've mentioned before, and I shouldn't mention him, but like Sir Clement Freud, I used to enjoy his columns because
I like Gary Glitter's music as well, but
well, that's it. Yeah, Gary Glitter's music was great, but sadly they were both paedophiles. There you go. His column I found
they were good,
really
weren't they? They were good.
Great writer. And the current mob, there is some talent. It's just not what it was. And I don't know if is that down to like, you can't get away with now what you used to write.
Yeah.
It's a lot safer, isn't it? Everything you do mainstream now, it's safe. You got to be safe. You can't use inflammatory language. I mean, it's why you don't see Mark Winstanley the Couch all over them. They were hilarious to watch.
The problem is, right, you're right. And although we are very, very critical of the Racing Post, but to give some balance, they are hamstrung by the online presence that all of these newspapers have. I was speaking to a journalist in the week, and he's very, very serious, heavyweight crime investigative reporter, right? And he's done a number of podcasts in some really serious shit, and he's a proper guy, won a load of awards. And I said, what the fuck are you what the fuck are you doing now? And he said, well, basically, he said, because all the online portals want is sort of 500 words, effectively clickbait. So he said they value quantity over quality, and the money just isn't there to finance deep dives into exposing scandals, like McCruick did with the tote, etc., and the delays in all of that sort of stuff. And the money's just not there anymore. And unfortunately, yes, we criticise the journalists for the output, but a lot of the time, that's what they're tasked to write. And it's sort of 500 words of rubbish just to get eyes on it, clicks through, adverts, etc., to get eyes on adverts. So unfortunately, the days of having people that are able to spend 6 months digging into a subject, they're gone. The money's not there to pay them, and that's the problem you got, I think, with not just racing journalism, but journalism in general.
I completely agree. Bert Doncaster's been on. He says, given your love of cooking and food, who are the bar stewards' culinary
Good question,
heroes?
that. I like that a lot. Fanny and Johnny Craddock, I reckon. What do you reckon?
I just love watching Keith Floyd because he just fucking gets pissed. And that is how you cook your food. You fucking stick more wine in it. And if you haven't had enough wine, drink it, and then open another bottle and stick some more in the pan. Yeah. Keith Floyd, for me, he's an absolute legend. John?
Jeremy Lee.
Oh, right.
Who's Jeremy Lee?
This is Lee's little boy.
Yeah.
Come on, Lee. Come on.
He was the chef at Blueprint in London, Bibendum, Quo Vadis.
Oh, right. Proper.
Excellent chef. Excellent.
Ain't him.
Keeps it basic, but focus on the ingredients. And I like his approach very much.
Well, Fanny and Johnny Craddock, right, which I didn't realise till recently, weren't married. Did you know that?
Really?
No, she changed her name
I was going to say, what a
Yeah,
coincidence. They have the same name.
but she changed her name obviously to create the illusion that they were together. But she was married at the time. He'd left his wife, and she tried. She was erroneously advised that her second husband, I think, had died, and so they got married. But the marriage was annulled ab initio because it was bigamous because her second husband wasn't dead. And she's got an amazing backstory. Her mother, I think, was called Bijou, who just spunked all the money away. And the father, which were both loved, was a degenerate gambler who had enormous gambling debts from the card tables of southern France, southern French casinos. And she spent her child moving around to avoid creditors for her father's gambling debts. And she was destitute for years until she wrote a cookery book and then got on telly, etc. So a very interesting story, backstory to the Craddocks.
Didn't
None
know
of
that.
that featured in the Fanny Craddock biopic, did it? I forget who it was that played her.
Yes, I remember that whoever it was superb,
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, but it was term regarding.
Yeah, I mean, she lived 10 lives, but what a fantastic! She was a real book. I mean, he was an old Harrovian, so he was pucker British upper class, but she was a grafter and a bit of a grifter. You know, she pulled herself up from her bootstraps, but her background was just her father was just a fucking just every last coin they had, he fucking stuck across the bookmaker's counter. But no, yeah, it's good.
2 points here. Owen Docuseries, more bollocks, says John. I'm saying, yeah,
Yeah.
we
I
don't
mean,
even need to
what
discuss
the
this.
fuck are they thinking, eh? You
I
know,
don't know. I have
we've
no
had
idea.
Champions Full Gala, which is about rich boys that we're not even interested in, and now we've got the blandest footballer that's ever walked the earth doing a docu
But that tells you they got no emotional intelligence because they don't connect with people who follow the sport. So they make an assumption. Oh yeah, the plebs will love this. It's a football. They all love football. The plebs, so we'll have this. And they couldn't be further from the truth.
Chris said earlier, they don't connect real people in racing. John had an idea a long time ago for a documentary following people around him racing, normal folk, their normal lives, the life of a stable hand, the life of a.
a fairly shit trainer, you know. Some
Yeah,
lads that go in an exchange shop every day. It's limitless, isn't it?
it's better to watch that content than watch a Hooray Henry say how great the game is. No, it's another fail. Newmarket Spice Boys, John. What's this about? Are they all on Spice?
Maybe they ought to, because I've just noticed really how the second tier in Newmarket, where it used to be absolutely packed with promise, is now basically unproven gobshite. You know, with the depth to the training ranks is very piss poor. You know, I mean, back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I mean from the mid 70s onwards to the mid 90s, shall we say, you had like Stout and Cecil as the governors, and then you had people like Ben Hanbury, Haggis, Kamani, Gosden, Jeremy Hindley, Jeff Ragg, Clive Britton, Alex Scott, Alex Stewart, Jeff Huffer, Lauder, Mark Tompkins, Alan Bailey, Hugh Collingridge, you know? Solid trainers. And now you've got probably Gosden and Haggis as the top two. And then your up and comers consist of Bowie, this Ollie Ricks that's renting a piece of the yard off Charlie Fellows, who seems to score for turf winners. Yeah, James Horton, who's had a bit of luck with the Saeed Sohail thing. That'll be interesting to see how he gets on with those. George Scott, showing the right signs. James Eustace and Simon Crisford. It doesn't stand comparison with what was there, does it?
Yeah. Is Bowie overrated?
I think so.
Yeah, I do. I think for the numbers he gets and kind of horseflesh he gets sent, I don't think he's a trader that I think's doing the business really. And he might have to cope with the loss of Sheikh Abed because we don't know what's going to happen. He's got the favourite for the Guineas in Bo Echo, and obviously I presume it'll just be the Exors until they sort the will out. But still, long term, we don't know the future whether Abed's family will continue to own horse stock.
I wouldn't bet on it because he seemed very hands-on for an Arab owner, didn't he?
He did, because that's why he kept having face on with trainers and moving them.
Yeah.
He got the face on very easily. And even Cool Roger, who's the nicest probably bloke in the world in terms of his demeanour.
Too nice to train horses for a living.
Yeah, he soon took them from him after one of his got injured on the gallops.
The next notable comeback in this country looks like being Robert Winston.
Oh, Robert Winston.
Yeah.
Aye, the old Miles Rogers days. Come on, Robert. Robert, you've cost me fortunes winning that.
If he is coming back, chances are we can get him on this pod.
Oh, we like that. We will promote Robert Winston. There we go. You've got a great pair of hands as Robert. Right, this has been fabulous to do this week, especially on a quiet setting that we've been presented by the weather, etc., etc. But we've enjoyed doing it. And next week, some of you will be, I would imagine, quite pleased that we've got Stephen Derbyshire on the show.
One for all your Withnail and I fans.
Absolutely. Chewing the fat on British racing, amongst other topics. Be sure to listen in next week for that, because I'm sure it'll be quite a corker.
If you like the reels on YouTube, have a look at tin fish reviews. Put you in the mood.
Yeah, type it in, tinned fish reviews. Yeah, it's quite funny. I thought it was quite incredible. But anyway, so that's all from us. I hope you enjoyed it this week like we have. Bye for now.